Hey, Councilor Kanal. Welcome to this episode of Black Beat Podcast, man, where we like to talk about it like it's real, man. So, welcome to the house today, and we appreciate you coming in.
Thanks for having me.
So, hey, you're representative of District 2.
Yeah.
Things have been going on. Okay, you've been in office for the last year. What's happening, man?
So much. It's a pretty chaotic job, very busy, but I love it. I prefer to be busy than bored, and this job definitely serves that up. So I'm working on some very specific things, but we're always reacting to every other proposal that's going on too at council. So in a given week, you could be talking about crosswalks on MLK. You could be talking about ICE. You could be talking about a zoning change out in East Portland, and you could be talking about labor and workforce issues like wage theft that's citywide.
Well, let's talk about ICE, man. So what's ICE been doing in our district? They've been dancing here or what?
A little bit. I mean, most of the visible work that they do and the resistance to it has been in District 4 down by the ICE facility on the south waterfront. But they came up to, first they do raids all over. And we've seen in the last several months around some of the schools, we have fathers being taken out of their cars and they're dropping off or waiting to pick up their kids. We have seen ICE has used tear gas. The only place they've used it other than the facility that we know of in city limits has been in St. John's, which is in the District 2 over on Fessenden. So we've seen
What's
a lot
over there
of
in St. John's that deal with immigrants?
It was near the schools, so Roosevelt, George, and what we're seeing is that impact around schools where we have greater levels of absenteeism. We have people, both students, parents, teachers, who are worried about it. So we're seeing a lot there, and we are responding to it as best we can within the confines of the law. And that's been challenging, and each step is slow and deliberative, but there's a lot we can be doing, and I'm trying to make sure that the city's doing it.
Hey, man, is the job anything like you thought it was going to be?
Yeah. I mean, I knew it was going to be busy. I knew it was going to be a lot of talking to people in the district, and that's why I wanted it. And I knew that it was going to have a lot to do with what goes on in that chamber, actually discussing, making amendments, voting on things. I think the parts that are unexpected is how much time we spend talking to lawyers. How much time we spend talking to bureaucrats. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just the balance of time, I think, was a little bit unexpected. But for the most part, things that I saw going in. The city's financial situation is a lot worse than I think we knew as candidates. And I worked at the city. I had some inkling of it, but not
really. You were a city what when you were working with the city?
I was a project manager for the Police Accountability Commission, and then I became a manager for community engagement in public safety. So I worked for the city for about 3 years.
For 3 years?
Yeah, 21 to 24.
And so talking about the city, we moved from a 4-seat to a damn stadium. But so how's things going with that transition, man? I mean, are things interesting, or what's the strengths and weaknesses of the transition that you've been recognizing over the last first? You've been in office now for 1 year now, right?
Yeah.
So what's the transition's been like?
It's been good. I think there's a learning curve, and the biggest part of the learning curve is getting to know the other 11 people you work with. And none of us really knew each other well. I had some experience with 3 of the other counselors from before running for office, and that's pretty much it. So we get to know each other a little bit, start to figure out how they work, not just what they're interested in.
Right.
And I think the big change is we used to have a system which really it created a path forward that was clear but not necessarily representative. You often had aligned counselors, at least 3 or 4 of them, on an issue. And instead, we switched to one that prioritizes representation so that everybody has a voice at the table. And in the short term, that can look like discord or fractiousness.
Right.
But in the long term, it looks like everybody believing that, hey, maybe the council didn't vote the way I wanted them to, but at least my viewpoint got represented in the discussion. And I think that helps build long-term trust. And we are definitely doing that. We have this form of elections where 3 people represent a district. We get closer to our part of the city too.
Right.
But also, Dan Ryan, Alana Pertolgini, and I all represent District 2, and we have some differences of opinion, and we also have some things we all share.
Care to talk a little bit about those differences?
Yeah, well, I'll start with what we share, actually. We all care about parks a lot. Dan Ryan was a parks commissioner. Alana Pertolgini was a parks board vice chair, I believe, and I was also on the parks board. And that reflects the needs of our district, where parks are actually one of the top issues that come up in polling in District 2 specifically. Um,
And
we
the
have
significance of parks are what in terms of the progression of that relationship? What makes parks so significant in that?
It's third spaces. It's a place that you can go that isn't work or home and spend time and have it be cheap or free. It's swim classes for people's kids. I can't tell you the number of doors I knocked where someone brought up how they couldn't get their kid into a swim class.
Wow.
And especially in North Portland with our proximity to both rivers,
Right.
as well as the need for, in particular, people of color have not had access over these years to swim classes. So that's been a really big part of what we're trying to address. And community centers, which were on the chopping block last year. And I would say if you got to give credit to any three councilors, it's the three of us who helped, and of course the mayor, who got those off the chopping block.
Wow. So as you begin to navigate your way, what are some of the other things that you've run into in terms of the relationship being strong versus not being strong amongst the three of you?
Yeah, I mean, we really collaborate a lot on District 2 specific issues that maybe don't make it to the council floor in terms of we're not necessarily discussing in a public meeting. I'll give you an example. The Columbia Pool was going to be demolished last year, and the three of us worked together with the administration to delay that demolition so we could assess whether or not there's a path forward. And we have some assessment going on right now. Later this year in the spring, we'll be talking about what those paths forward are and if there's a viable long-term solution for the Columbia Pool. And that maybe hasn't been discussed in public at a meeting, but behind the scenes it's like, hey, can we make sure that we are sure we want to demolish this thing? Once you start demolishing it, it's gone. And making sure that there's at least a little hope. Doesn't mean that it's going to be saved. It just means that we could save it, and we're going to actually do that due diligence. And the three of us collaborated really strongly on that.
Cool.
And still are.
So what are some of the things you guys are not collaborating very well on?
I mean, we're
Consensus.
collaborating.
I mean,
even
as
when,
far as consensus, I'm
Yeah.
sure you guys work together
We do.
just fine. I mean, but what
I
are
think
some of
we
the topics
differ
that come
on a
up in
few
different-
things. So one big thing is, what is the main thing when it relates to homelessness? We all know that there's an affordability part of it.
Yeah.
We all know that there's a behavioral health part of it, mental
Yeah.
health, drugs. And it's not just about what's the bigger issue and more
Right.
important. It's about what are we going to push on to solve the problem?
Right.
And I definitely fall into the camp of affordability. The majority of people who become houseless are becoming it because they were unable to afford the rent. Whatever else is going on in their life, that's the commonality. And maybe there's now, when you're on the street for a while, that's going to be detrimental to your mental health, just to
Yeah.
be unsheltered in society. There are, I would say, Councilor Ryan focuses predominantly on the behavioral health side. So that's a difference of opinion. It doesn't mean that he's wrong or I'm wrong. It means where are we going to focus our effort? What's the button we're going to press to solve this problem, or how do we split our resources to do a little bit of both?
And so how you see us navigating that issue around homelessness or housing issues in our district? Do we have enough asset in our district at this point in time?
No, I think we've got places for people to go at night, but they're not necessarily aligned with the places that we want people to go during the day. We have a day shelter, for example, in a day center in St. John's, but there's nowhere near it for people to go at night. And especially as you see some of the public transit service being cut, it's a little hard to get people between those two places. So part of it's just where they're sited, and part of it is the relative balance of different types. We need places that aren't just for people to sleep at night. That's a really good step, and I'm glad that the mayor got a lot of rooms built, a lot of beds built. But we also need places that help people transition from living unsheltered to eventually permanent housing.
Right. The affordable housing concerns. Are you supportive of the affordable housing sector, or are you talking about a different type of sector of housing?
I think what they're doing is good, but it's not enough. And so I'm not faulting the providers necessarily. I think one thing that I want to work on is vacancies in those properties. So in particular, the ones that we are directly or indirectly involved in running. Home Forward has a 14% vacancy rate right now.
Yeah.
That's unacceptable. It's not a lack of leasing agent willpower or something. It's about trying to make sure that that people feel safe. You want to rent there. When you're taking a tour, you should be seeing a safe building. They all look nice and they're kept well on the outside, but some of these buildings you go inside and there's drug dealing going on. There's been shootings on the grounds outside, things like that. So we have to put in a little bit of effort, possibly some investment to improve these locations. That's going to collaborate across not just the housing sector, but police, whoever else, and try to make sure that we're creating a safe space that people want to rent. The other difference is making sure that there's a gap between the rent, a bigger gap between the rent and an affordable housing place and market.
Yeah. And that's, so you're saying that 60% is just not working.
That it's not. We've talked to folks who have they make too much to get into the 45, the 30, those types of AMI standards, but it's still unaffordable for them at the 60% rate.
Yeah.
Or 60, yeah.
So this new money discovered by Portland Housing, which is not new money,
Right.
but we're aware that they have discovered new money. Do you think that money should go toward the buy down of the leases and some of the rates that we're dealing with some of the affordable housing units?
Yeah. So let me step back for a second. You've seen the 20.7 million, the original money.
Right.
Then there was some more discovered that was part of eventually getting to it to 106.
Correct.
And that 85, or that's beyond the original sort of basket of money that was found. It's budgeted but not programmed, which means it's already in a bucket for a specific task. Sometimes they let it accrue, so because it's easier to get something done with $20 million, a project, a building, than it is when you have $1 million and all these little funds.
Right.
So I think that side of it, we want to be involved, but it's more about which projects within the already bucketed, type of program.
Right.
But the original 20.7, that's just found.
Right.
And so that needs a place to be sent. And we want to use that because we have needs to address right now. We don't want to leave it just sitting there. And for that, I do think that it should be focused on things like buying down the rent and helping people stay in their homes. This is money that came from the rental services office. It's a fee that landlords pay in. It's designed for renters.
Right.
And I want to make sure that it's helping renters. I'm one of 3 renters on city council. One of the nice things about representation, there's only ever been 2 that we know of in the history of Portland, and then 3 got elected in 2024.
Got you.
And as one of those 3, I'm familiar with some of the struggles that a lot of these folks are facing because I'm still a renter. Right. And so making sure that we're able to keep people who are close to the edge, that precarity in their homes, is really important to me. And also helping people to get back in, because once you've fallen out of the housing continuum, as we say, once you've fallen out of housing, it's hard to get back in.
So what are your thoughts about the preference policy?
The preference policy. Yeah, I think the broad strokes, I think it's good. I think there are some really important needs that it addresses, and we need to be doing our part to address a historical displacement across the city, but in particular here in District 2. There are a couple concerns I have with it, most notably that we're building studios and 1-bedrooms.
Yeah.
And we need 3 and 4 bedrooms. I think we're pretty close to where we need to be on 2 bedrooms.
Right.
But we're overbuilt on studios and 1-bedrooms and underbuilt on 3 and 4.
Good information there, Councilor, because you're pretty accurate on that. I guess a full disclaimer is that I sit on a few of these boards and these commissions, as you may well know.
Yeah. So one of the things that we can do there, we measure our success by the number of units that we're building, which they often say the number of doors we built.
Right.
And the issue there is that you can maximize studios in the same size building if you are counting by the number of distinct units. I want to look at the number of people you can house.
Yeah.
And that's going to be about the same regardless of the layout.
In a square foot print or
exactly.
within that,
Yeah, and then look at where the need is. And the need is family units right now.
Right.
And we got to be building that up, especially to try to get folks back into an area where they or their families have been displaced from.
So what do you think about the idea of Williams and Russell project?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great project.
Yeah, very supportive. I actually met met with several of the people involved in it. It's a really amazing project because of how many different people are involved in different groups.
Yeah, a complete project for that site and I've always been a real big advocate for affordable housing, and in perpetuity is just not the answer. We all know that, right? But the concerns we've always had in the district has always been that there's too much of it on the quarter. Okay, just on the main quarter of the MLK quarter. But we were also very supportive of the Williams and Russell because it incentivized growth, and the very thing that we talked about, right?
Yeah.
About how do people really grow beyond just a affordable housing reality? How do you stimulate the vision? How do you support them in getting to that home ownership, business ownership, essentially the American dream?
Yeah.
I guess for me, the biggest concern has always been, Councilor, is that we tend to continue to develop dependency models, right? Where our citizenry gets dependent upon the model instead of the model somehow contributing to some independence in terms of growing toward the American dream. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, this is so important, and it's particularly important in District 2. Generational wealth building has to be a big goal, not just for Black and brown folks, but especially for Black and brown folks in the district. And the biggest single thing we can do for that is home ownership. So earlier today, I was talking to the mayor about housing priorities and talked about the need to build more ownership opportunities. We have some structural limitations locally, but in particular at the state level on why we don't build condos as often as we build apartments, for example. But we need to be looking at ways to build things that people can own and not just rent. And then if you're applying some of these other programs to it, including the preference policy, helping that develop so that we're getting people in a position to build generational wealth.
So, as a counselor, and recognizing the state of climate that we're in now, and in the last year, within the year you've come in, and then our federal level and in our country, and this whole issue around DEI, how is that affecting your office? And as a counselor, how are those things affecting your ability to do your job?
I think on policy, not as much as people might think. I think where we're seeing the bigger difference is around the culture and sort of what can we talk about, what we can't talk about. The federal government's executive orders, Trump administration's executive order, was designed to create fear around doing work for people who've been historically marginalized, in particular Black and brown people. And I think the good news is that this is Portland, and it hasn't been as effective here as it may have been in other parts of the country. That doesn't mean it's had zero effect, though. So we've seen programs have to adjust and look at what they're doing. Not about DEI as much, but if there were any concerns around the Civil Rights Act or things like that, there's been some adjustment. I'm broadly supportive of maintaining what we have and continuing to serve people who've been historically marginalized. And so there's been a challenge and a tension there. But I think it's been less on the actual direct policy front and more on how we talk about what we do. Got you.
So talking amongst you three, how do you talk about this issue and topic in light of
Dan, Alana, and I? Yeah, I mean, I think it's more something that we've talked about with the full council than by district, even though obviously District 2 has a lot of the particular programs that are targeted here. I will say when we convened a small work group on it, and Alana Pertle-Guinea was on that too, and we've been talking a lot more there. There's a lot of desire to maintain the work that we're doing for people in the district.
Gotcha.
And I think that's common to the whole council. I've just only talked to a few folks directly about it. And I think that there's a commitment to continue to serve this group of people that live in our district or that should live in our district but have been displaced from it.
Come on, Counselor. Get into the weeds a little bit on you, man. I mean, here you are a year. You're a unique contribution to all this, a person of color, right? Come on, man. Share with me a little bit of the angst and what's become visible to you over the year, man, of being in office. I mean, the changes versus how it used to be over here. What are you seeing different?
Well, we had some pushback on a lot of different things, but I would say that the commonality is pushback by using process, using status quo bias as a way to prevent the people who are there making change.
Gotcha.
So, for example, we have attempts to limit our ability to make amendments to things. It's these process things. That sounds neutral, but it's really not. It's designed to prevent us from being able to do the policy work that we were elected to do. And so we've seen that tension. We've seen tension around the budget and when and how you make amendments. That was a big thing last year. I hope it isn't the same this year, but trying to make sure that we're able to put these ideas forward. The other piece of it has been, who do you meet with? Who do you talk to?
Yeah.
And did we do enough community engagement? And how do we engage with our staff when they're telling us, well, we did enough engagement on this project. And we're saying, yeah, but we're hearing from folks in the neighborhood. You didn't talk to them.
Got you.
And that's been huge, and it is disparate, right? We're seeing that with places where places that have been marginalized are seeing a bigger gap in the engagement that we're hearing about. So that's been a problem too.
And of course, even utilizing communities without a community engagement plan, or these used to be that the projects are divided into construction, and the other part is divided into community participation. And for us, it's just tiring to see small agencies or organizations benefit, but the community as a whole never seems to get a come up in none of these major kinds of plans that we're going. So you serve on you're co-chair of a couple committees, right?
I'm co-chair of Community and Public Safety. I'm also on Labor and Workforce and Climate Resilience and Land Use.
What's going on in those sectors, man?
Yeah, so Labor and Workforce, we talk about a lot of different things. This coming week, we're talking about Moda Center. We're also talking.
That's a big one.
Yeah,
that's
just starting the conversation in committee. So it's a presentation, nothing to vote on. We're also talking in climate. There's again a range of issues, but talking about how we allocate money within PSEF and whether or not $15 million should be moved out of a electric vehicle program where it couldn't be spent fast enough to other transportation issues or into housing.
Right.
Community and Public Safety, there's a lot going on. There's a piece of legislation around ICE coming forward. That's from me. It's going to be about unmasking, identifying, and verifying these folks who we don't know if they're law enforcement or not.
And Proud Boys.
It could be, and so exactly. And so, and then the other piece, long term, we're talking about wage theft in labor and workforce development. Councilor Smith is the chair of that. She and I have gone on a couple tours of construction sites where people are, being lured in with a promise of pay that's higher than what they were getting paid, but it's lower than what's legally required, and then they're not getting paid at all. And so, or they're getting paid less than the agreement. And as someone who's had my wages stolen, I definitely see this as a huge problem. It should be talked about all over because it's the biggest type of theft we've got.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you. So I've been hearing about this Peacock thing. What's this all about?
Yeah, so 6 councilors, we talked about having some common values and being public about it. Being out there and telling the world, here's what we stand for. We told a lot of folks, obviously, during the campaign what we were about. But now that we're in and maybe have folks who didn't know about us during the campaign, but also can see that there's commonality, taking that and making it public. We really strongly believe in being transparent about it. A lot of the groupings and alliances that have developed in the old council and even now have been done behind the scenes. And maybe people don't know about it till there's a text thread leak in a Mercury article or something else is happening that brings it to light. But there are a lot of alliances and groupings that, not just this one made sense to come out and say, here are some things we're all going to work on and let the public know. Obviously,
when you say all, you talking about 6, either side?
I think this particular one is 6. There are other groups that are 2, that are 8, that are, whatever. And you can see it in endorsements in the campaign. You can also see it in just commonalities in voting. And in this particular case, it was really about how do we collaborate as a group of 12 and do that in public, but also how do we communicate with the public that before then and outside of meetings that here's what we stand for. And we have some common values like economic justice. And it's important to talk about renters' rights is another example of that, trying to make sure that the public knows.
Was that, how did that affect or not affect the appointment of the new chair of, the one that...
The council president?
Council president, yeah.
Yeah, I think it affected it a little bit. I think it was discussed more often this year. That last year we kind of knew where people were at, but the conversation hadn't developed formally. This year it was formal, and certainly it was the reason a lot of people cited for the reason for their votes. But I think there are also a lot of other reasons that were cited that I look at too, about how we want basic things that sound very neutral, sound very boring. How do you want to run this meeting? How do you want to schedule things? But really affect how we do business. The Public Safety Committee ran out of time just about every meeting this year.
Wow.
And we were trying to get more time for it because those issues need to be discussed. There are other committees that didn't use their whole time. And so leadership, council president, vice president, can make decisions like, hey, we should actually give more time to this issue area. And what that'll affect is when people say, why are you talking about this stuff that's not that important? Well, we didn't have time to talk about all the stuff that was in committee. And that's where it affects the public, but it might seem really boring and procedural.
Okay, we have 3 minutes left. Talk about businesses in our district.
Okay,
Talk
yep,
about
yep,
what's the plan.
yep, yep, yep,
We have a huge
yep,
flight
yep, yep,
problem from downtown,
yep,
but
yep,
what is,
yep, yep.
okay, 3 minutes.
So as you know, the Northeast Business Association is a part of a larger collective reality of small business development, Councilor. Historically, the state has never been really one of a small business concern focus.
Right.
And the district has not only just us, but the whole structure of small business has had to sort of step back off of a lot of the large funding opportunities and some of the major concerns. We acquiesce to a bigger degree to housing. A lot of these things come before us. What are some of your future plans for small business development in our sector, and what are your thoughts about small business and their concerns?
My dad owned a small business for 15 years out in the suburbs. I worked there a lot. I'm familiar with a lot of the struggles that people go through when they're trying to make a living. Really big picture, I think it's about redefining what success looks like for our economy. The health of the commercial real estate structure and commercial real estate sector is one part, but not the whole of what economic vitality looks like. I think that economic vitality looks like homegrown businesses getting started and able to survive, some of them growing and becoming bigger, the salt and straw kind of story.
And very familiar with the story,
And so when we get into the particular policies, I support Prosper having that Office of Small Business, eventually having 4 people, 1 for each district. Right now there are 2 that split districts.
Right.
There's a lot of incentives we can do. For example, aligning our tax code, our business license tax, with the county, so that the first $100,000 of income is exempted, not the current $50,000.
Oh yeah,
and doing that in a revenue neutral way. And that's something that's being discussed right now. We figured out what we want to do, and they're still figuring out how to pay for it. So we got to figure that out first. But that's a big part of it too. And making sure that businesses can grow here. I love it when I hear about, oh, this big company wants to move into Portland.
Yeah.
But I love it more when I hear about someone who is from here, got that business started, and now they open that second shop, that third shop. And the other piece I'll say is I authored a study. We're getting it back from the administration. It's due back this Saturday, actually, for a commercial vacancy fee. And so that's designed to help ensure that the rent comes down in these vacant properties so that when you want to start a small business, you can afford it.
Yeah.
Because it shouldn't be sitting there vacant forever.
Right.
We need to change the incentive structure.
And you are aware of what some of the reality factors are for preventing occupancy in these spaces, especially in these affordable housing development sites. There's just never been a real synchronicity between the affordability of the living spaces versus affordability of the retail spaces.
Right.
So I think that somehow if we can use some of those dollars to mitigate some of those concerns, I think that we'd be off onto a right track. But as we conclude, Councilor, I'm just curious. I ask this question most of the time, but do you believe the American dream is still alive, or is it dead?
That's a great question. I think it's comatose right now, which means it can come back.
Gotcha.
But it's really hard right now for a lot of people. I think it exists for a few folks, and that there are a lot of people who are making their way, striving, working hard, and it works. But you need a lot of luck in addition to that. I've been really fortunate in my life. I know a lot of other folks who have been too. And I want to make it broader.
Gotcha.
So I still think it's possible. My parents are immigrants. They came here for that dream. And I want to make sure that everybody has access to that the way that they did, the way that I have, and the way that, frankly, past generations had a lot better than the kids coming up now and young adults coming up now.
Councilor, do you believe, just one last question that I just came to my mind, do you believe that structures like the Peacock Caucus within the structure, are they assets or they liabilities as we move forward in looking at how you guys present that kind of posture?
I mean, they're both, right? For some folks, they think it's a liability, either because they're on our side and think people are going to be mad at you, and or they just disagree. But I think what people got mad at is that we were effective, not because of coordination, but because of the legislative work 6 of us did, and everything we succeeded on last year had a 7th vote. right? You can't succeed without a seventh vote.
Exactly.
So that's been a part of it. It's been an asset to tell the public, right? It's about that transparency. When you see these other things get leaked, I mentioned the Mercury article earlier, you saw groupings that weren't publicly announced, right? They exist. And there are many of them. Sometimes there are groupings that are perfectly rational to have. Like the three of us in our district are going to advocate for our district. We're going to make sure that those conversations happen. By the way, I'm very excited this year. I'm going to be on the Public Works Committee starting in April. So District 2 will have a voice in the transportation discussion for the first time. There's nothing wrong with advocating for your district.
Right.
The question is...
Well, we hope you do a whole lot more advocating for the district.
Absolutely.
You know, yeah.
And I think transportation is just a really important space where we've been kind of limited in the conversation.
Correct.
And now D2 has the highest traffic deaths. And we want to make sure that we're bringing that down the way we did in D1 last year and the way we did in D3 2 years ago.
And including the MLK quarter in a lot more of these conversations around roads, highways, and byways and pathways.
We got 17 crosswalks.
Yeah, tell me about it, man. I've been advocating this all along. You talking about I-5, yada, yada, all the time, but even when the history of the issue with them trying to close 7th and had no consciousness about rerouting traffic from 7th, would only reroute it onto the MLK quarter. This whole issue about Nike leaving really affected our community in a really adverse way, Councilor, and I would like you guys to maybe start paying a little bit more of attention to what that impact was. I mean, they were here with 6 million people coming through this community while they were here yearly.
Yeah.
And it has reduced itself way down to less than 2 million people in traffic, with a traffic count maybe roughly between 15 and 20,000 a year. So anyway, hey, man, I always appreciate it when you stop by the house, you hear?
Always happy
And I
to.
appreciate you guys coming on this episode, and being part of Black Beat Podcast, man. And again, much respect to you. Keep up the great work you're doing, and I'm going to keep my eye on you. You hear me, man?
Absolutely. If you want to find a place to keep an eye out, March 17th, 3 o'clock, we're bringing that ICE legislation forward, taking the mask off these folks.
Come on, man.
Thank you.
We appreciate you. Again, thank you. And this concludes our episode of Black Beat Podcast. Thank you.